my mods, Raheem, sent me a screenshot of someone who messaged him about weekly giveaway packs.
Oh, you got people scamming on your channel?
There's been times I've had people try. Well, that's the thing, is that's why I always ask for verification, because a lot of times I've had people like try and pose as other people, and I'm like, I need you to like actually verify this, and then they like never respond, because I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what I thought. I'm like, yeah,
we are alive. Everyone, welcome to the channel. We have Eli with us from PokemartUSA.
Hey
I'm
everyone.
sure a lot of you are coming over from his channel and from his community post, so appreciate that, Eli. We'll give everyone a minute to get in here.
All right, let's see. How's the audio sound on my end, by the way?
Everyone's audio good?
Oh, I need to go in and I need to mute. Yo, what's up, Derek? How we doing, brother? Glad to see you here. Glad you saw my post. It's always nice to see Derek.
All right.
All right, we got
people rolling in now. Sorry, guys, I don't have the pretty setup over here that Eli does, so we're gonna make do with just our faces today. No fun charts and graphs and everything. Sorry about that.
I mean, when I do the like live streams outside of the general like stream card box, I just usually, if I do have charts, it's like me just projecting on another page so that people can see off my second monitor.
Now I'm gonna like pay for a consultation with you to
have
me set up my live stream capabilities.
Yeah. I sound great. Love to hear that. What's up, Tic Tac?
So yeah, everyone, what we're going to be doing today is I'm just going to be picking Eli's brains, kind of interviewing him about, kind of his, I guess, his views and everything, what he's been seeing, kind of being involved, basically quasi full-time in Pokemon, at least a lot more full-time than I am. And so, I think he just brings a lot more to the table, especially being hooked up with distribution and seeing a lot of, how the waves of product are coming and things like that. So I think it'd be really helpful for everyone listening to get an idea of kind of that side of things. So, yeah, Eli, what do you want to start off with? I guess we could start talking about, I mean, I know we were talking about a little beforehand about the whole Astral Radiance, release is a lot different than what we've been seeing in the past. So what do you think people should know kind of going into Astral Radiance if they're thinking about buying in?
Well, probably, I feel like the first thing I want to do before I answer that is I want to just introduce myself for those people who don't know. So my name is Eli with PokemartUSA. A little bit of my background. Started a website near the end of 2020, the pandemic. Just saw kind of an opportunity because Pokemon was looking like it was going to start popping off. And I've been in the hobby since, gosh, I'm 23 now, since I was 6. So for 17 years. I took a break a little bit during the XY era, like I want to say sometime in between Sun and Moon to XY of like, I don't know, near the back end. And then I came back in with Cosmic Eclipse because it had a lot of my favorite Gen 4 cards. Steam Siege kind of drew me off of it. And then also I didn't like the Sun and Moon games either. It's the only game I've actually never bought of Pokemon. I bought every other game except for Sun and Moon. Basically, I also, like he was saying, with my website, I have a lot of connections with distributors. So I work closely with the Pokemon company. And then outside of that as well, I also have a lot of knowledge from my background, having gone to school for general business / economics. So for me, a lot of my channel and what I'm about is just making market trends and predictions based off of not only what I know in regards to what I have been informed from my distributors for reprints, when those are going to happen, but also just taking a look at how general charting we're able to kind of predict what the past is going to be able to see into the future in regards to the Pokemon era. As a hobby. And so it's very interesting to see, because especially within the past couple of years, you can really look at charts in like crypto, for example, and see a lot of correlations and trends in how it pertains to Pokemon. But now that I've got my introduction out of the way, answering your question in regards to Astral Radiance, yeah, we were talking about this a little bit before. It's very interesting to see because if we talk about like kind of my allocation numbers on average for sets, I usually get anywhere in the realm for wave one between 50 to 60 booster boxes, and then wave two 50 to 60. And it's very interesting because with Astral Radiance, I got 54 to be exact. And then for wave two, I got 2 booster boxes. And I've seen, other places like Cardinal Gamings, for example, they've talked about this as well, where they practically got like no allocations for Astral Radiance. One of the things that Nostalgianomics was saying is, maybe it's because there's a low demand, there's an expectation, and that's entirely possible because obviously the set is mainly like the next battle styles in regards to, or Fusion Strike in regards to its focusing on competitive play, because there are some cards that we've seen that are competitively viable for the current meta. However, it still is odd because Battle Styles is one of the most heavily printed sets. Fusion Strike is a pretty heavily printed set, and at first we had reports of it going to be low printed, but then later down the line they added more print. And then on top of that as well, with Brilliant Star, for example, with the Elite Trainer boxes, there was actually only one wave or one print of the Elite Trainer boxes, and Brilliant Stars is a high demand set. So it's kind of all over the place in what the Pokemon company is doing. Obviously, we know that there was some news of their purchase with Millennium Print Group. So the expectation is they're probably getting things ready to start really pumping out product. I've made predictions saying that the month of May as well as June is going to be a super heavy print month because historically we've seen the Pokemon company tend to come out with a lot of reprints right before and after new set releases. We've got Astral Radiance coming, so we're probably going to see some reprints around the same time because they like to literally dump everything onto the market all at once. And then also you've got the new Pokemon Go set, which I actually just got my allocations for yesterday. And so we're going to be more than likely also seeing a large amount of reprints around when that set is released too. So.
Okay. Yeah. And so you're obviously, you don't have a physical location, but you are still, a store, you're an online reseller or retailer. And so, we've heard some other stores come out and talk about, some things about, modern Pokemon sets and other people in the hobby and the whole modern versus vintage debate. So we talked a little bit before the stream, but kind of give me your take on being, a store needing to constantly, sell product to get cash flow and things like that. And then do you also hold on to, modern seal product as well? How do you see that kind of performing, even though, we are getting so much print runs coming and all that printing is on the way? I mean, do you still feel comfortable holding things long term, or are you, selling a lot more these days? How are you trying to play that?
So one of the things I talk about a lot on my channel is I'm very transparent with the way in which I tell people to do things. Or I should say, not financial advice, but the way in which I recommend people to do things, because it's literally the same strategies I do myself. I always talk about wave one. Wave one, if I'm going to open product, that's the time to do it because that's when prices for the cards are at their premium. So I'll put out my general wave one sales, and then I'll keep like a case of booster boxes for myself to open. I'll open those, I'll sell those. Wave two, as we talked about before, typically I will just put pre-orders up, or I will put sales right before you see that initial drop for wave two. And then I don't actually hold most of my general product until either a wave three happens or a confirmed reprint happens. Because for me, unless I know that I'm going to be able to make these predictions for when the next reprint's going to happen, I already have the information that I'm not only relaying to you guys, but also just the information from my distributors on when the waves are. So I know when to sell right before the price is going to drop, and I know when to pick up right before the price is going to start picking back up again. So it's like, as I was telling you, I was selling a lot of my wave two allocations on Evolving Skies. I was selling a lot of them on TCG Player because the margins were so nice, because the average price at one point was $195 a booster box. So I remember for wave two, I sold half on my website, half on TCG Player. And on my website, I was selling them for a lot less because I wanted to still offer like affordable Evolving Skies booster boxes. So I was selling them for like $144, I think. But then TCG Player, I was selling them for like $195. And even after fees, I was making so much more on TCG Player. And basically I did that. And then I sold all of those, and then reprint product came to me 2 days later because I'm located in Oregon. My distributors are mainly located in California and Oregon, so they're always able to get it to me in 2 days. Price crashes. Basically, everything goes down to $120, $100. I walked away making 2.5x profit off of that. And then I took all of my money that I made and I doubled down and I reinvested in Evolving Skies booster boxes at $100. And then I slowly started to offload my product as prices got to 130, 140. So like I took the general strategy of just playing the waves is one of the things I've talked about the most. So in regards to holding product, the only time you typically will see me hold product is if I think a set's about to go out of rotation based off a standard format. So like I'm going to be holding a heavy amount of ETBs for like Shining Fates because it's about to go out of rotation. Vivid Voltage ETBs are about to go to rotation, Darkness Ablaze. So if it's about to go out of print, that's when you'll start to see me kind of double down on those reprints. But for most part, I just feel like you're missing out on opportunity when you're talking about time cost analysis. Because when it comes to just sitting through and waiting through that 2-year, cycle of it being in rotation before it fully goes out of print, then there's so many opportunities you could have sold and then bought in at a lower price, sold and then bought in at a lower price. I feel like for me, as the business especially, I need that liquidity to constantly be churning for me to continue to grow, because I can't just be sitting on product without generating sales. Because when a new set is released, if I'm just sitting on a bunch of product, unless it's product that I purchased with that extra profit that I made off my initial sales for my wave ones, then for me, I'm just losing money at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. It kind of just goes back to like the regular almost Pokemon product life cycle these days. It didn't used to be like this, but nowadays pre-orders kind of, up a little higher. And then as it gets closer to release, it's dropped a little bit. Release comes, and then weeks or a couple months after release, it usually hits its kind of bottom for that time. And then we usually see the rises in price, kind of the peak, and then the reprints a valley, and then there's another peak, and the reprint is another valley. And so there's a lot of times in there where you can kind of, arbitrage your way and make gains. But, you hear a lot of people say, well, just buy it and hold it for 5 to 10 years. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's not, that's not going to work. It's that there's a lot of opportunities to, be in other things that are going to grow more other than sitting in this kind of up and down scenario for 2 years, when you can probably get that product, in a year and a half or 2 years around the same price. And then you're going to see the most intense growth of that product in that 2 to 5 year span, probably. Whereas, holding something for, the whole 5 years, or even getting in something holding for 10 years, there might be a lot of different, scenarios. Because one thing you can tell me if you agree with me is, another thing I notice is products, they have a plateau where they hit, where they kind of get out of that intense growth stage and they go into that more long-term steady growth stage. And so you see a lot of, the price range can be different for every booster box, but say in that 2 to 5 year range, they go from 100 and, X dollars a box up to the, high twos, low threes, maybe even the fours. And then a lot of boxes, they start to plateau and have that slow, maybe 5, 10, sometimes more % growth a year. And so instead of holding a box from that 3, 4, 5 year range onto eternity, it may make more sense to divest from those products and move back into products going out of rotation and kind of repeat that over and over again to kind of make the best gain. So, it may not be the best thing for a collector, but definitely if you're trying to maximize your returns, that's the way I feel it usually works the best. You tell me what you think about that.
So from a general returns perspective, I 100% agree with you. It is definitely way better to go that route, because especially with in-print product, it's so much more volatile because of those reprints happening. One thing I did want to touch on, when you're talking about people that are like sit on it for 5 to 10 years. So I think that's a very much mentality that a lot of people have based on transferring from the stock market, because a lot of times people will be like, listen, sure, I can be a day trader and I can make profit, or I could be a swing trader and I can make profit off of selling every once a week, every once a month, whatever chart you like to trade, right? You can make that profit. But for me, I've got a life, I've got other time that I need to spend things. I don't have time to do all this research, yada, yada, yada. So for me, it's just not worth it. I'd much rather just invest, and then sure, I'm missing out on potential time cost analysis profit off of general waves being played in the stock market. But for me, it's something that I'd much rather, look at the bigger picture. I think there's a lot of that mentality that people have and they bring it into the Pokemon market, which I completely understand. However, I would say that the Pokemon market is a little bit different in that way, in the essence of we have predictions on when we know exactly the price is going to drop. Like, sure, there's obviously demand cycles, and you can look at general like psychology of the market with charts in both Pokemon and in the stock market, but there's a lot more variables in Pokemon because of those reprints that we're able to see, okay, this price is going to crash. So literally, it wouldn't take much research. All you would have to do is click on one of my videos where I say confirmed instead of question mark at the end. And you see that because sometimes I clickbait people. And you'll see where I basically just say, hey, there's a reprint coming. More than likely, price is going to happen. I would say for most of my videos, the only one where you haven't seen a significant drop has been Brilliant Stars. But if you see the one I made about Fates Collide pre-release product, if you saw the one I made about Lost Thunder pre-release product, saw the one I made about the reprints for Darkness Ablaze, Vivid Voltage, Shining Fates, most of the time, like it's followed up within the week or two of prices on product dropping after it's released of around 50% plus. So I usually, like, my channel's a pretty good indication on when I'm able to tell you because I'm hearing it straight from my distributors. And so for that reason, you have those variables of literally, all right, well, I just bought, let's say, Evolving Skies booster boxes at $100, right? And then let's say, you know, I hear word from my distributors, hey, we're going to get a huge, you know, reprint coming up for Evolving Skies booster boxes. Let's say it's at the time of like back in the instance of when I made the announcement wave 2 for Evolving Skies was going to come out. Then people would know, hey, look, Evolving Skies, I bought it at $100 on pre-sale. It's now sitting at $195. Now's probably a good time to sell. It doesn't take like a math magician to be able to predict when it's going to drop because we know reprints are going to happen. Now, Brilliant Stars is a very interesting one because although I did get a Brilliant Stars reprint, it was a very small one, but from what I've seen on my allocations, that's usually not an indicator because I got a small amount of allocated Vivid Voltage and the price still has crashed 50+%. So it's very interesting to see. My prediction is this is probably like a teaser of small product and there's going to be a bigger reprint wave near in the future because the set is, it's like it came out in February. It's not like they're not going to be throwing more onto it. Yeah. So only time will tell. But yeah, no, I would definitely say that people have just the kind of wrong impressions and they're definitely missing out on a lot of opportunity because even if you say to yourself like, well, Eli, you have a website, like you can easily go sell your product. I sell a lot of the time outside of my own website, like on TCG Player. And so if like you were listening to like some of the general like playing the wave strategies that I talked about, you could have bought an Evolving Skies booster boxes back at $100, then sold it at $195. Sure, you're taking a loss on those 15% fees and shipping fees when you're talking about, you know, selling on TCG Player, but the profits you're going to be making are still 50+%. So just like even if you don't want to have to be fully invested, all it takes is 1 or 2 videos and then, you know, 30 minutes of you posting on TCG and making a TCG Player account, and then however long it takes for you to ship out, for you to really just make a ton of money. And so I feel like it's a lot of just people being lazy and not wanting to have to, I mean, honestly, it is of people wanting to like make quick money, but actually not having to put in the work for it. So I would definitely agree on your sentiment. And then also say, yeah, that's kind of just the mentality that I believe with a lot of people when it comes to comparing.
Yeah, I mean, like Skippy FX, he posted in the chat, you know, everyone's availability and effort is actually work with their money and short term will vary. I mean, that's true. So like kind of like the stock market with the, you know, it's passive investing. So yeah, I understand the people who do just want to buy something and let it grow over time and don't want to have to worry about, you know, buying and selling. But at the same time, you should also, you know, be paying attention on when the right time is to buy, because if you could buy something for the same price, around the same price, usually in 1.5 years or 2 years, why would you lock that money up with no gain or no movement for that long when it could be used somewhere else making you gains? It could be in the stock market making you at least a dividend. It could be another product that is in its, you know, intense growth life cycle. So yeah, I mean, I do get both points. You know, if you just want to be detached and you don't want to have to, you know, kind of worry about the market every day or week or month, whatever it may be, that's still an option you can take. It's still knowing, you know, kind of how the market moves, how the prints happen and when to get in and out. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, I wanted to get into the whole singles market because, you know, I don't talk about it a lot on my channel. I want to start because that's all I used to do back in the day to grow my collection, grow my investment, is buy collections, you know, break down or open product, break down and, you know, grade the singles and sell the lower grades, keep the higher grades for free. And I know that, you know, you're more of a store, so you can do this more full time than I can. I just don't have the time to do that stuff anymore. And so that's why I've really kind of focused on sealed investing, because it's, you know, it's lower risk, it's lower time, it's a lot less time you have to put into it and things like that. But, you know, kind of walk us through, like, you know, if people out there do have the time to put in and they do want to, you know, get into that type of style of, you know, in the single market, how exactly do you work that these days?
So before I answer that question, I wanted to make one last clarification.
Yeah.
Because in regards to the statement, like when I say people are like being lazy, I want to make sure that this comes off the right way and not arrogantly. I'm not saying they're lazy in the way of like they don't want to necessarily fully put in the work of being able to understand. I mean, because I understand people that are like in the aspect of not wanting to do all their research because they don't have the time. But for me, I'm specifically talking about if you're wanting to invest in ultra modern, because in instances like you were talking about where there's so much more money to be made, if you're going to be investing in ultra modern, in my opinion, and you're wanting to maximize your profits, then you're going to want to put in the time, versus if you don't want to, put in the time, then that's an instance where I do think at that point, it's more worth it for you to invest in some of those older out of print product. Or if you wanted to, you can just be patient and wait till rotation goes out, and then you can just wait till the very end. But a lot of times, for those people, they're not patient. They want to initially invest right away and then sit through all those reprint waves rather than selling at the top and then buying it at the high. And for me, I feel like that's just a lot of missed opportunity. So that's just kind of my thoughts on that. So people just should, in my opinion, really focus on, if they're looking for that kind of lower risk and not having to put in as much effort, focusing in on waiting either till the end of reprints or investing in older product out of print. Looks like my face is frozen.
Yeah, I was just gonna tell you, I was gonna stop you in a second.
It's because my distributor is calling me. I'll have to reach out to him in a second later. I apologize about that. I will answer him in a second. Sorry, one of my distributors probably.
Unless he's calling about Evolving Skies reprint, you could take that call and give us the inside scoop right here.
Hey Eli, we've got a huge wave coming in. But yeah, I'll call him back later. It's probably about Pokemon Go because I just got my allocations from my distributor on that. So in regards to singles, that's interesting because it's all over the place when you're talking about what kind of singles necessarily. So like for myself, I obviously talked about this with you before. I obviously sell break packs, and most of my break packs are basically 20% off, 15% off what I usually sell my general seal booster boxes for. That's because I like to keep the uncommons commons. It's like it's a win-win how I look at it. It's going to be you get cheaper packs and you get your reverse hollows and your hollows. And then for me, it lowers the cost of shipping, and then I get to make up the profit by selling off the bulk. Now for myself, of course, like I mentioned before, the biggest time issue that I have with it is that I am sitting on 10,000, trainer cards, reverse hollows from my general product that I open. Cause like I told you before, when it comes to a new set release, I usually open a case of product. So I have a bunch of reverse hollows for my own collection, and duplicates. And so it's one of these things where the issue is just, do you have the time to do that? And because if you really want to, you can quote unquote play the waves the same way with general, trainer cards, because when you look at wave one, opening your product, you're going to make the most money because there's that kind of speculation on, is this trainer card going to be competitive or not? Or this card just came out, and so everyone wants to be able to buy and master set right away, or people want to be able to basically start, experimenting with certain cards in competitive format decks. So it's like you're going to be able to make those premiums. The question is, are you someone that wants to be able to put in the time for that and make money? Now, if you're talking about just general trainers and stuff, and we're not talking about the general individual that opens up their booster boxes and says, I want to make some money back off of, my general bulk, and we're just saying singles, I definitely would say that there's there's opportunity to be made in singles. It's starting to be more prevalent now. It went away for about a year, I want to say, because before the pandemic happened, I was buying singles left and right like it was nothing off of collections for dirt cheap. But then once you hit like high peak point of the Pokemon hobby in regards to buying singles and flipping, it started to go away. I went from seeing like listing after listing on off of Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist all the time to now I maybe see one once every couple of months posted, and half the time it's someone saying, hey, I have my collection of 100 cards, 50 of which being energies, I'm selling it for $1,000, and it's all ultra modern product. And I'm like, you don't know what you're doing. And so for me, it's definitely going to be more prevalent as you're starting to see more people post it, and there's still opportunities. But now a lot of people definitely have that same mindset. So it's definitely, you have to be more aggressive in being able to find these things. And I do think where there is still an area to, if you want to put in the time, there still is that area of buying up a bunch of people's bulk and then going through and listing it. The real question is it worth it? For
So let's
someone
get
like
controversial with that. Let's get controversial and
yeah,
use the SM Pratt argument. Why
yeah,
not just get a minimum wage job and go?
yeah, right. I think it really comes down to, once again, how much work you want to put into it, because in this hobby, you can totally make a good amount of money putting in a little bit of work. But if you want to start really making this a side hustle, then I would say grind your way up to TCG Player Direct, and that's going to save you so much time in the long run. And that way you're going to be able to go through and kind of buy up these old collections of bulk for, pennies on the dollar, and you're going to be able to then relist them for 4, 5, 6x return, because people might say to themselves like, oh, that's just not worth it, because I'm only making, I bought the card for a penny, it's 5 pennies, that's not a lot, but it's the percentage is what in my mind I'm thinking about. And I have a system to a point of where I can go take $1,000 worth of cards. It takes me an hour to upload it. It takes me an hour to ship it out, 2 hours to ship it out. And I end up making, after fees and everything, around $500. And it only took me several hours to be able to do everything. We'll say 3 to be conservative. Like, that to me is worth it. But you also have to get yourself into a system that is most efficient for you. You have to be able to understand general markets on what you're looking for, and you have to be able to scurry for it, because bulk is where your opportunity is, in my opinion now, especially considering a lot of people have been, not sending in their bulk to places like the Safari Zone, because bulk prices have started to crash recently. Like, I remember I was selling my general bulk for around 5 cents back during the height of the pandemic, because everyone was buying bulk. And now I think it's selling for like 1 penny, maybe a penny and a half. So a lot of people are taking their bulk collection, they're sitting on it. And if someone is willing to pay more and they aren't wanting to go through and value each of their cards from XY Sun and Moon era product, then you're able to walk away with a large amount of profit. It once again just comes down to the time and research you're willing to do it.
So I want to touch on that is because I think it's a good point talking about you can just get a job if you wanted to really do this. It's like, there is money to make it if you're an expert like Eli is, and he knows the right routes to take. He has a system set up where he can actually maximize his time for money. And I think that's why I kind of get a little bit of backlash from a lot of the a lot of single collectors or PSA collectors, is because my whole method is based off sealed most of the time, and it's because I know a lot of people like me don't have that much time. They maybe have a full-time job already. And so they're looking for something where they can place their money in, where they don't have to do too much work with it, and it can grow over time, and then they can sell at a profit later. And so on the flip side of doing all the work, how do you see the actual just buying the cards at market? So a single or a PSA slab, CGC slab, buying it at market value and letting it grow over time. Do you think that still has the same, type of returns we're going to see, if you get in the modern product at the right time and let that grow? Or do you think it's really just in the finding the good deals under market value and then grading them yourself or things like that? Do you think is any opportunity in just buying at market value and holding?
I think that's a good question. And another thing I also wanted to touch on in regards to the last sentiment about just flipping bulk and cards and stuff. I wouldn't call myself an expert, even though I have a system down. I always want to refrain from calling myself an expert, because there probably are people like Cardinal Gaming that do this at a much larger scale. I would probably say they're more of an expert. I'm just someone that's found a system that's efficient for me. And like a lot of people in the comment section are saying, time is money. And so for myself, I have an efficient system that saves me a lot of time, and I'm able to pump out that. I am able to pump out a lot of product that I'm able to sell at an efficient rate for me, where when I'm calculating the time I'm putting out and the money I'm bringing in, it's worth it for me. But to answer your question now on like the PSA CGC grading, it's really hard, because I hear a lot of people ask me all the time, Eli, is it worth it to invest in alternate arts? All alternate arts going to be the future? We obviously take a look at, some of the most recent sets. The population reports on them are very low, but that's mainly because, PSA prices have been so high. And then also, for those people that don't know, I want to say this happened about a week or so ago. PSA just officially opened up economy for $50. So before you had to do an event in order to get that, and now it's open for $50. Not saying that it's worth it, but I am saying that prices are going to naturally come down again over time. So still be patient for sending in your ultra modern if you are wanting to grade it. But one of my biggest fears, and I feel like there's a lot of a misconception on this, is a lot of times people say that ultra modern, they say that the prints on ultra modern are really poor, and they say that, you know, I wish there was better quality control. And although I would agree with that in the reverse holo slot, it's not truly reflective on the PSA reports. So if you look at, like, you know, a lot of the alternate arts in the Sword and Shield era, and you look at like, or like a set like Hidden Fates, for example, the 10:9 ratio is higher versus you look at a lot of these older sets, the 9:10 ratio is, you know, higher. So maybe that's because, you know, in part, that's because a lot of people weren't sending them in. And so now people are sending them in and there's more 9s. But also, if you truly look at like the quality control of what happened in, like, you know, the Diamond Pearl era, the EX era, a lot of these cards had a lot of like miscut issues in regards to centering. They had a lot of whitening issues on the cards themselves. So I think there's that misrepresentation because it's a lot easier nowadays to get a 10 than it is a 9 than it was back then, even with the prevalence of PSA being more relevant nowadays. So it's really hard for me to want to get on board with, you know, investing in these PSA 9 slabs. 10s are kind of my way to go. I could definitely see there being a return on investing on alternate arts because alternate arts are a beautiful design. The question ultimately at the end of the day is going to be when PSA decides to drop their prices, whether it be $15, $20, $25. I think 10 is out of the question because we're going to have to adjust for inflation as well as demand. But when they do drop their prices and you're going to see a lot more people sending in, how is that going to affect the population report? Because if you look at a set like Champion's Path that has a high pop right before it went out of rotation, you've got 5,000-6,000 pop reports, 10,000 pop reports on those Charizards. And so these alternate arts, they're pretty hard to pull. And even with that being said, you're still going to see a high rate of them being sent in and getting 10. So for me, I think there's definitely going to be value. It's just not going to be as much. I think I've talked about this before. BGS black labels are going to be the future, in my opinion, for ultramodern. It might sound controversial to say that, but I just think because it's so much harder to get them. I know a lot of people don't care about it, but if you're going to get the best bang for your buck, when you just look at the value off of a PSA 10 versus a pristine 10 or a black label 10, there's more value to be made, especially considering people still like those subgrades and PSA doesn't bring that. The only time I would say I see real value going with something like PSA over like BGS or CGC is when talking about some of those older product, like in, you know, EX era, Diamond and Pearl era, you know, YC, just older product. That's where you still see those premiums with, you know, PSA. So it's better to take that because the risk to reward is greater with older for PSA versus newer, I think, with BGS.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a good answer. Yeah, I mean, I think there's opportunity everywhere in the market. You know, wherever you look, you can find it, type thing. I wanted to touch on another question that literally every time I tune into, I think, a Pokenomics stream, is I'm in the chat and I get this. I see this in the chat almost every time, and I always have to respond to it, and then no one ever gets it still. And so I just wanted to get your take on it. Is that the fact that as sealed product ages, and I get it, we have more print than ever, but so we do the same thing with evolutions, and you know, we've had a large print for a while now, but I know people say it's never going to get scarce, but believe it or not, things eventually do get scarce eventually. So people have a real problem with, as product ages and gets scarce, how the booster box prices, they end up far outweighing the singles inside, even graded singles. And so people have a hard time kind of coming to grips with that. You know, a sealed item price can be far removed from the actual value of the cards inside. And so their immediate reaction is to say, well, it's not worth it. That box is not worth that. It's overvalued. It's not worth that. And so how I explain it all the time is that while single cards have a PSA pop report to show scarcity, sealed items don't. You know, so a card may have rarity and scarcity, but a box may not have the rarity aspect because it's mass released, but it does have scarcity eventually. And so the same way you buy a high grade PSA card for the scarcity, for the value to rise, It's the same thing with a sealed product. Is as it becomes more and more scarce and there's less and less available, that's what causes the value of the product to rise. So people are buying the actual product itself. They're not buying it to open or for the value inside. And so I just want to get your take on, if you agree with that, if you, what do you think about as boxes age, black and white, X, EX era and so on, some of the boxes being so much more expensive than what you can actually pull inside, and if that's actually for good reason.
Yeah, no, for sure. Once again, before we touch on that, I wanted to actually respond to something that someone said in the comment section.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Pika pointed out an amazing point. When talking about it, at certain points, it's not even worth sending in your ultra modern cards if there isn't a guarantee. Because if you look at, for example, let's say like, what's a good example? Like the Sylveon GX from Hidden Fates, for example, the PSA 9 value last sold for $71 and the raw value sold for $53. The PSA 9 for the Charizard sold for $450, and at its price right now, I think at TCG Player you can get it for as cheap as around $430 to $450, around that price. So what's very interesting is you can go buy nines for sometimes cheaper than the raw cards, depending upon which ones you're looking for. So it's one of those things where, in regards to sending them in with Ultramodern, it's just really hard to rationalize it unless you feel really confident it's going to be a 10, because these nines have very little value to them, because the population report on them, it's just like people just don't care because the population report on them is lower than the 10s. But now going into your point that you were going to say, yeah, I think it's very interesting, because one of the things I talk a lot about on my channel, and I try to be a huge proponent of just understanding general supply and demand economic theory. And so I think that first and foremost, I think that because of just that general, booster boxes are deflationary, and I'll explain what that means for those people who don't know. Deflationary just means that the items themselves are becoming less in supply. They're becoming more scarce. And because of that, the value goes up because the supply is going down. So basically with booster boxes, let's say there's 1,000 booster boxes, right? Well, every time a booster box is open, there's now one less booster box in existence. That's deflationary. That's less going in. And if hypothetically speaking, let's say there's a 1-to-1 ratio, let's say there's 1,000 booster boxes and 1,000 people want those booster boxes. Well, as more of those booster boxes get open, and if the demand stays the same and the supply goes down, then the value for that product is going to go up because there's going to be less and less of it around, and more people are going to be willing to pay higher prices because of it. So that's just why you see, generally speaking, booster box prices versus cards, for example, it's the other way around. As more and more of that product is open, there's more and more of that supply being thrown in because you pull these expensive cards that are now being thrown into the supply. That's where you start to see population reports rise, and why I'm still able to open jungle first edition cards and still be able to pull 9s and 10s, because I have such a prevalent amount of, WotC era product that I'm still able to go find. Do I say that's a good strategy? No, because it's super prevalent. And that's one of the reasons why it's a lot more affordable when you look at it, to go see a lot of these cheap ungraded prices on cards, especially older. And a perfect example I would say is like Evolutions, for example, right? You take a look at Evolutions, it was absolutely printed into the ground, and the value of the Evolution singles are still dirt cheap, in my opinion. I mean, they're extremely cheap. And you look at the booster box prices, I mean, peak pandemic, you're talking about over $1,000 a booster box. And it's the craziest thing, because I hear the argument all the time that Ultramodern is not worth investing in because the supply for Ultramodern is so high that you're never going to be able to make money. You're going to see a lot of people holding on to this. But if you go right now and you look at how many people are selling just off of listing, selling these Evolution booster boxes, and you go back and look at how heavily the set was printed into the ground, like it is an extreme, like arguably one of the highest printed sets of all time. And so it's one of these things where the demand for it is just so high that it is able to outweigh the overall supply. And so that's the thing people don't understand, is that in a growing economy, or sorry, not in a growing economy, in a growing hobby, or an asset, the demand in a natural scale for a deflationary asset should naturally outweigh the overall supply, as long as it's deflationary, or the inflationary rate is lower than the actual demand rate. I mean, you can compare that to cryptocurrencies, for example, right? Because crypto is actually inflationary because there's a set supply off to the side, like 21 million Bitcoin, and a certain percentage of that is mined and added to the pool each year. But since the demand naturally over time surpasses the amount of Bitcoin that's actually being thrown in, it's able to still gain value over the demand of people coming into the crypto space. Same kind of concept with Pokemon. You just naturally see growth of product go up over time because there's a natural amount of demand. And so investing in sealed, ultra modern, I mean, there's just a lot of a misconception that people have about it because they think that things are overprinted. But the one thing the Pokemon company has done really, really good, and I absolutely like, props to them for being good about it, is they print to demand and they don't overprint to demand. That's why you look at certain eras after the Great Recession, such as Diamond and Pearl era, you know, there was a very low amount of that product that was being printed because the demand wasn't there. And when there is demand for that, they're going to print it heavily, and it's going to still get opened up naturally over time. And sure, you can say there's some people, or there's more people going to be, you know, holding on and investing, but there's also going to be more people that are holding on and investing that will eventually sell early because they've got weekends and they're not in for the right reasons. And there's going to be more people that are going to be coming into the hobby that are going to be wanting to buy it. So it's just a natural logarithmic trend line that you just see over time in a healthy hobby such as Pokemon.
Yeah, and I think just like the market shifts that are happening that I don't think is being picked up on as much. People just think it's kind of hype still or boom, and I don't think it's being picked up on that. Back in the day, like, yes, there were people like Gary or, you know, those one-off people out there who were putting sealed product away, but there were, I'm not going to say none, but, you know, a very, very small percent of sealed product collectors back then. It wasn't a thing. You opened the cards, you enjoyed the cards. And today people still argue that that's what Pokemon's for. It's to open the cards, play with them, enjoy them, trade them. But the fact of the matter is we're seeing a shift of people actually truly wanting to collect sealed product. Like, it's not that they're trying to stash, you know, thousands of cases away in their closets for an investment. They truly like the art of the boxes and the ETBs, and they want to have one of each. And so just the fact of having sealed product collectors is taking a lot of product off the market. And then you also have the YouTubers, the whatnot streamers, the Twitch streamers opening product. You have just kids or regular people in general in their own homes, and more products being open than ever. I mean, back when we were, or I mean, you didn't grow up in base jungle fossil like I did, but even when you were a kid, you know, I'm sure it was the same way. Your parents got you 2 or 3 packs, right? And so 2 or 3 packs was a normal opening. Nowadays, a booster box is a normal opening. So it's like 13 times as much as we used to open at a single opening. And so, yeah, even if they're printing way more than they ever have, we're opening, you know, 13 times or more than we ever have. And we're at the same time putting sealed product away as a collectible. So it's disappearing as fast as it's coming. And I think that's the other, you know, kind of thing a lot of people don't like to kind of see, is that market shift to people enjoying this product more. They enjoy the art more. They enjoy the pull rates, like the chase. And, you know, it's just that opinion that's out there. It's always going to be out there, is the longer people stay in the hobby, they're going to gravitate back to vintage. And I just always look at that and say, well, what does that mean? What's vintage? I mean, maybe you could argue you're good at first edition base because high-end people always want the first of something. But does that mean people are going to gravitate back to base set 2, to Gym Heroes, to, you know, Neo Genesis? Like, at what point are people going to gravitate back to these certain sets? And, you know, I would make the argument that maybe people just gravitate back to XY or Sun and Moon or Sword and Shield. This is where kind of the biggest influx of people came back into Pokemon. Maybe this will be their nostalgic roots instead of base set. A lot of people coming in now have no affiliation to base set. I mean, you talked about, you don't really have that hard of an affiliation with base jungle fossil and you know, those earlier vintage sets. So yeah, I mean, I just think, you know, kind of realizing how the market's shifting and moving, you know, kind of the way you play it towards that is going to become more and more important, because seal's not going away. And I know we get that all the time, is that was being printed more than ever. I don't know how active you were back in Evolutions. I was very active. Everyone out there, please listen to me if you don't hear anything else. I was there. I was buying Evolutions booster cases from my local card shop, okay? Not eBay, not working back alley deals. I was going into the card shop and I was working deals under $80 a box because they wanted to get rid of them. I was buying cases under $480. and no one wanted it. YouTubers back then, they would get collection boxes. They'd have Evolutions packs in them, and they'd be like, oh, another Evolutions pack. And everyone hated it. No one liked the set. And all of a sudden, they became worth, all this money. And I'm not saying that like a Battle Styles is going to be Evolutions. I'm saying that just because something is out of favor right now or is seen as an oversupply right now, it doesn't last forever. Would you say the same thing?
I would 100% agree with everything you're saying, honestly. And we talked about this before the live stream, and I'll use this example as well so that people understand what I'm saying. I feel like, especially with a lot of these influencers that talk about WotC still being king and stuff like that, like, don't get me wrong, like during the boom, you saw a large like return off of WotC era product, arguably some of the highest amount of returns when talking about 2016 to 2021. But when we're talking about what the future is, generally speaking, I mean, I had posted a video the other day where I was talking about my undervalued product picks, and the most common like feedback response I got from most people was, I don't care about WotC era, and I even grew up in that era. And so it just seems like the demand for WotC and for people wanting to get into WotC, it's not there, because although I said, yeah, you can still find WotC level like PSA 9s in the Shadowless era for around $100+ to $300, depending upon which one we're looking at for hollows, or you're still able to buy some of these, first edition packs, for around several $100. People are saying to themselves, they'd much rather buy a full booster box. It's more fun for them. And on top of that, they have no nostalgic ties to it, or they just appreciate the artwork now more than they did when they were younger for WotC era product, which I find very fascinating because nostalgia is a huge thing. But the example that I want to use with this is, it's like comparing the YouTube era of product of influencers the internet era of people that are influencers then versus the crypto influencers now. And I say influencers, maybe that's the wrong word, but like I should say entrepreneurs more. Take a look at like Bill Gates, for example. Back when he was, one of the forefronts for the internet, people thought he was crazy. People thought the internet was going to be a bubble. And it was one of these things where no one believed in him. And then, of course, now look what you see happen with him or Apple or, any of these other forefronts in regards to the internet. He obviously proved them wrong, and the internet's now one of the biggest things than ever. Then you see what's happening with crypto and how big crypto's grown. Well, who's one of the top people that's against crypto? It's Bill Gates. And it's very interesting to see people like Warren Buffett even has said, I'm super against crypto, but I don't even know what it is. Like, that's an actual quote where he says he doesn't know what it is, but he's against it. How can you be against something you don't understand? And I think it's people just get fallen into these traps of like basically being in their own time and knowing what the future technology is. But then when there's future technology and it's, not their time, then for them, they just are kind of out of touch and they're not in the times of what is prevalent. And so you can really compare that to Pokemon, whether it be with WotC and Modern, especially as time goes on, because the most powerful thing is nostalgia. And so you saw a large amount of Diamond and Pearl era product start to absolutely pop off in prices. I mean, we're talking about PSA 10 cards for as low as $25 to $50 for these level X's that are now selling for $1,000, $2,000+ depending upon the population report of them. And that was a large part in because of the Diamond and Pearl remakes, and then also Legends Arceus coming out. And so there's been a huge, revamp of Gen 4 love and nostalgia kind of coming out. And so that's something that people at the time, were not a huge fan of Diamond and Pearl when it first came out, but now realizing 10 years later, 15 years later, people like myself that grew up in that era, love that era, we're reliving it now that we're older and we have that money. You're going to see the same thing happen with the Sword and Shield era. You're going to see the same thing happen with the Sun and Moon era. So it's one of these things where I might not like Sword and Shield era products, like Shining Fates, for example. I think Hidden Fates is far greater because I like the Pokemon selection, but a Shining Fate set in the near future, like I'm talking, or I shouldn't say near future, but in the like long-term future, it's probably going to be a really strong performing set because people that grew up in that Sword and Shield era loves all those Gen 9 Pokemon are going to love Sword and Shield Shining Fates because that's just what they love, and they love those shinies, and that's going to be one of their favorite sets from that generation. So being able to have that foresight to like understand the future of how people in this generation are thinking, I think is something that's very important, and not to get stuck in your generation of what you like and being able to see what people like in their generation.
Yeah, one of the things that really kind of helped turn my mind the way it is now, because when I got back in 2015, I was vintage through and through. I mean, that's all I knew. And so I eventually started getting to modern and buying things. But one of the things that really turned my mind is, so obviously I'm sure most people here know Rudy Alpha Investments, but do you remember how, do you watch him, Eli?
Oh yeah, I'm a huge fan of Rudy.
Do you remember all the Ultimate Masters openings, like the Ultimate Masters Bingo and all those different openings he would do?
I actually did not watch a lot of those.
Okay, well, back then, so I mean, I was watching everything Rudy did, and so I would just kind of let them play as my day went on. I would just, watch them. But so I know nothing about Magic the Gathering, right? I'm just one of those people that love Rudy. And I literally went back, not recently, and it was, I guess, a year or so ago now. And I actually bought 2 boxes of Ultimate Masters, one to keep sealed and one to open, because I have those nostalgic memories from watching him. And so I just wanted to open the card. I'd never opened a Magic card before, and I just wanted to do it. And so it got me thinking. I'm just thinking, I don't have any, I don't care about alpha or beta or unlimited. I know nothing about them. They have no feelings for me. But I watched all those Ultimate Masters openings and just all the excitement and seeing those pools. And I wanted to go open those because of that nostalgic feeling. And I think that's what a lot of people miss is we have nostalgic feelings from every part of our lives. From when we're kids, we have high school nostalgic feelings, maybe college nostalgic feelings. And there's all different things we did or were involved in all different times of our lives that we all have feelings for. And so I think a lot of people are missing that a lot of people get into Pokemon now are going to have nostalgic feelings other than what they have. And so just because they see these feelings they have for vintage sets or, the way they think or the way they would collect, it's not going to be the same for everyone, because a Magic collector or someone into Magic hearing me talk, they'd be like, this guy's an idiot. I mean, there's so much more value in A, B, C, D, and E set. I mean, Ultimate Masters is just it's nothing. It's a modern set. It's whatever. Like, why would you have any, like for that? And so I think that's a big thing. And, instead of getting mad or not understanding why people like the things they like, I think the better question is, how do I, adjust my mindset, adjust my style of investing to meet the needs of the market? Because as we know, we've seen it with kind of like, I don't like bringing the stock market up, so I always get dinged for that. But we saw it with GameStop, AMC, all those stocks, right? The biggest, the smartest people on Wall Street, they're all shorting it, right? What happened? The masses came in, they say, hey, we like these companies, we're going to invest in them, you're shorting them, we like them. And they moved the stocks to the moon. Why? Because the masses got together and said, we're going to do this. So it doesn't matter how educated those people were, how much more they knew about the markets, how much more they studied and knew all the charts. The masses move the markets. And that's the same point I always make about Pokemon. It's the masses are going to make the market do what it does. And no matter what the smartest and most knowledgeable people in Pokemon want it to do, it doesn't always mean that's going to happen. Would you agree with that?
No, I 100% would agree with that. It's definitely very interesting because I think that's one of the biggest things you're going to see with the future of investing. And I could be off base with this, although there is just general fundamental market makers. I think with investing, specifically with Pokemon too, there's so much more prevalence of like anyone can do it. You don't need a trading account to be able to go in. You don't have to have a $5,000 balance and $10,000 balance. So you're able to go in and do that. So I would definitely agree wholeheartedly with that. Another point I also wanted to touch on in regards to when we're talking about kind of the power of nostalgia, obviously you talked about with Rudy and like you buying some of those Magic product. One of the other things someone pointed out in the comment section was they had said Sword and Shield is the second most sold Pokemon game of all time, which is true. And so that's something that's really crazy. A lot of people don't really think about, especially because the influence that it had over the pandemic. You really start to see the prevalence of that. Even if you might not have liked it, I myself bought it. I was sold into it because I'm like, hey, it's the pandemic, why not? And so you have a lot of people that are probably around that same boat in regards to they bought into it during the pandemic because what else did they have to do?
Yeah, no, I hear you. Hey, Pokey Grindin', thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate that. There was no question along with that, but appreciate it anyway. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just sometimes I really feel like I'm just like out on a limb here, and I'm like I constantly have to like go back, research things, like take a deep look at myself and the things I'm saying, because it just seems like everywhere you look nowadays, everywhere you turn, there's all this negativity against modern and sealed product, and I just don't know where it comes from. I mean, I'm not out here giving all this negativity towards, going and collecting, vintage or, PSA slabs or whatever. I mean, I'm just saying that, hey, I think modern's going to perform better. But then like someone else come out and say, you can't invest in modern, it's uninvestable, it's all going to go to zero, and you're all going to lose all your money. I mean, it's never happened in any hobby. I mean, you look at Yu-Gi-Oh, look at Magic. I mean, yeah, there are dead hobbies where the card games went, but hey, they never went to zero. They still aren't at zero, even the dead hobbies. So I don't know. I guess it really just goes into how you think Pokemon Company in the future is going to perform as a whole. And if you think it's going to be around, if you think people are still going to want, to play with shiny cardboard, I don't know why you'd be betting against modern, because you're almost betting against Pokemon cards as a whole. And if you're doing that, it's kind of we're all going down with the ship. What do you think?
No, 1,000%. No, I agree.
So, what do you want to do? You want to take some questions from the chat? If anyone has any?
Yeah, I'm 100% down. One I wanted to respond to that I actually saw, I think it was Vidu who said it. He had said that Pokemon level X prices were already on the rise before the actual announcement. That's not actually true, and he said it's been on a decline more since then. So I follow level X sales very heavily because I want to master set and own every level X. And I think a perfect example of that is actually like the Magnezone level X that just recently sold on auction, eBay. It sold for, I think, around $600. So if you look at the actual price of the level X during the very start of the pandemic, it was selling for around 70. Before the pandemic, it was selling for in a 10 for as low as like $20, I think is what the charts are showing me. And then in the end of 2021, end of 2022, start of 2021, sold for 225, then sold again near the end of 2021 for 300, then sold about 5 months ago for 579, and then just recently broke another sales record for 600. So that one I was holding pretty heavily. Like I was like trying to figure out if the trends on level X's are eventually going to go down, because trust me, man, if you were right about that, then I would be scooping up a lot of level X prices. But level X cards are still performing really strong. I mean, just a Palkia level X from Brain Encounters the other day sold for almost $2,000. And for the longest time, I remember watching it sit back in the middle of 2020 to near the end of 2020, like top of the peak, right? Right before the set. Like this was right during when it was just first announced for the new games. It was sitting for around $200-300. And I was like, overpriced, probably not worth it. Demand's not there. And now it's telling me that it sold for that much. And especially like the Great Encounters Dialga 2 sold for $2,200 not that long ago. Like these prices are still going up. And I do think that that era of product will probably start to go down. My prediction, at least, once we do see the new games come out, because people are going to kind of start to fade away the nostalgia for it. Kind of like what you saw with some of the same correlation happened when Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire came out. Very similar trend happened with a lot of people going back, reliving the nostalgia of Gen 3, because that's what kind of a lot of the sets were geared around. I mean, Astral Radiance is geared around a lot of cards from Sinnoh region. So that's just my personal opinion, and the charts reflect that too.
Yeah, I see a lot of people always bring this up. People talk about sports cards. So people bring this up all the time of sports cards in the 90s and how, Pokemon can fall off again like it did in the 2000s. And here's the thing, guys, is it was a whole different world. I've said this before. It was a whole different world before social media, before we had, full immersion in the hobby at all times. And so like back in the day, if you think about it, you had your friends in your neighborhood, you had your friends at school, you maybe went to the card shop once a week when your parents would take you, you maybe saw people like a Toys R Us tournament, or if you were, competitive, went to like a regional, but you didn't have Pokemon crammed in your face all day, every day. And so the same thing goes with Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic. We have full immersions in communities now. We wake up on our phone and there's videos recommended to us. We are able to scroll eBay anytime we want. We have Discords, we're on Whatnot, we're on Twitch, we're on YouTube. And so we're always engrossed in the hobby. We actually have communities now like Discord, where you can go down and you can show your collection, you can talk about things, and you're constantly involved. And so it was a lot different back then, where you buy cards and you'd open them and have fun with your friends, but then it kind of really wasn't talked about. There wasn't there was no community built around those things, and that's why they fell off. And I think that's why Pokemon had its fall off back in 01, is because times just kind of started moving on. There was no real community to keep it going, and so everyone's kind of moved on with their lives. Well, now we've seen arguably, I'd say 7 full good like growth years in Pokemon. It's still popular. It's still more popular than ever, growing. And so that's a lot more than 99, 2000, 2001 already. So for anyone saying that it could die off like 90 sports cards or like Pokemon did before, I mean, we're already almost 3 times as big as the boom, back then in terms of length. And so I think it's because of the way our lives are set up now. Our lives are so much different than they were back then. We're 2 generations deep, probably almost going on 3 generations. And yeah, it's a lot different. It's a lot different life now, I think, is the biggest thing from sports cars 90s, Pokemon, 90 2000s till now. What do you think?
No, 1,000%. And the internet plays a huge part in that. I mean, there's a reason why you see such a huge amount of demand for certain pockets in the era because of the internet being able to bring exposure to that. I mean, to say that influencers like Jake Paul like didn't play such a massive role, like it was such a huge deal. You know what I'm saying? And then on top of that as well, with the prevalence of, I mean, think about it too, when you're talking about these games playing such a huge influence, when you're talking about myself, when I was playing, Pokemon, Sapphire, Ruby, Emerald, Diamond, Pearl, Black and White, it wasn't a lot of prevalence in regards to the overall like way in which you could go about playing the game. I remember having to go to the Barnes and Nobles and having to like go into the game section, and you would have to read one of the books to be able to go through and actually figure out how to play the game or like where to get certain items, versus now we've got like tutorials for everything on YouTube. And so the influence nowadays is absolutely massive, which is why you saw for the longest time a lot of these low population cards in the EX era, in the Diamond and Pearl era, in the Black and White era, that were very low pop, and in my personal opinion extremely undervalued because of the fact that you were able to pick them up for so much cheaper compared to what the actual demand was for them at the time. And now maybe once again, the demand for it at the time was prevalent because a lot of people, EX era, Diamond and Pearl era, Black and White era, this was all around the recession time. But considering the fact of how nowadays kids are going back and looking at those generations, and they're seeing how low the population report on them is, and they're seeing and feeling that relive of nostalgia when you did have those remakes for like Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, and now you're able to relive that because they have those YouTube videos of openings, they have those YouTube videos of playthroughs and so on and so forth. It brings an extra level and power to nostalgia nowadays that you didn't have before. And so for that reason, that's why, you're just seeing such a prevalence in modern day influence in regards to everything that the internet and influencers have been able to provide.
Let's get to these super chats. Pokey grinding again with Keep It Up Fellas with $1.99. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it. And Paladin Cards, you are amazing. $20 super chat. Are you crazy? I mean, I appreciate it so much for that. I mean, I've never got a super chat that large, so I really appreciate it. I'm glad you're enjoying the live stream. But Great Hambino was also with a $4.99 super chat. He actually had a question for us, and he said, "What's up, brother? Questions for you guys. Why do you think Pokemon collectors sleep on SGC slabs? Cheers, dudes." Eli, you want to take this one?
So I want to preface this before we like really deep dive into it. I am not an expert on SGC prices. So when you listen to the statement I'm making, this isn't a statement that is full on, I'm an expert, I know what I'm talking about. So I want to preface that because I don't want people to get the wrong interpretation. But from what I have seen with SGC prices from slabs, because one of my strategies of investing slash, like regrading is looking at these sets such as SGC and trying to, crack open their slabs and send them in for PSA. I know a lot of strategies that people have in regards to going with these lesser known grading companies and basically popping open the slabs and go sending them into another more prevalent one because they're going to get a bigger of a premium. So for me, from what I've seen from my experience with looking at CGC prices, people like the premiums that you're going to be able to get with these bigger brands. I know it, like some people, they're like, well, I like the slabs better or the prices are cheaper. I can understand that, but it's kind of like when you go into like a supermarket and you see, chocolate Rice Krispies versus the off-brand Rice Krispies with chocolate. it's like the prices on those are 50% cheaper. They taste exactly the same, but one is like 50% to 100% more than the other, and people are more willing to buy that one than the other one. It's because the branding power that comes with that. And so because of that, I feel like that's one of the reasons why people don't gravitate towards SGC as they do these other ones. The value that you're going to be able to get from grading with these companies, they like the slab designs more. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of CGC, but even then, at least they have, some value to them with the people in which they're working with, in knowing the credibility behind who's grading it, or like going through the grading process. But of course, I love BGS and PSA designs on the cards. So, with SGC, for myself personally, I've never been a big fan of their slabs. I don't think they hold the same premium in the market based off their brand. So I would say that's what my personal opinion is. But who knows? Maybe some SGC cards are worth more than others. But of course, like I said before, at least from what I've seen, it's never been the case.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I wanted to answer that. I knew he would give a good response. I mean, that's basically what I think. It's really hard to change what people want, change the demand in people's minds. It's even if the prices are better, even if the graders, they might have just went and hired, PSA and CGC and Beckett's graders and had them graded. They might have just as good of graders as everyone else, and they may be just as harsh. And I mean, I'm not sure, I'm not super knowledgeable about them, but they may be just as harsh as every other company, and you might get just as good cards in a 10 there as it would cross grade a 10 anywhere else. It's just the fact of convincing enough people in their minds that this is now worth as much. It'd be like, creating a new soda, like creating a new Dr. Pepper, and then getting enough people to believe that this is better or as good as Dr. Pepper, and you need to start ordering this. I mean, imagine going to every restaurant and every store and saying, no, this is the better Dr. Pepper. You should carry us instead. Give us shelf space. I mean, it's just that same type of scenario. It's really hard to come onto the market with a new product. It's something that everyone else already does very well, and saying, I can do it better. Here's why. And it just takes a long time to convince enough people of that. I mean, CGC's had a big come up. And the reason is because they were already in the grading business, just not Pokemon cards. And so they had a little head start to get in, but just starting from scratch and making a grading company, it's not easy, right? It's not easy to convince masses that, hey, this is a good store of value.
It's so funny too, because you see a lot of social experiments that people do with Pepsi versus, Coca-Cola, or like In-N-Out versus Five Guys. It's the funniest thing how a lot of the times you'll take like a blindfolded test and people are like, oh yeah, this is the one I love. This is the better one. And then half the time they're like wrong. And they're like, oh my God, this is Pepsi and not Coca-Cola. And so it's very interesting to see that like crossover of like people have this like perception based off of the overall brand that they're, more or less putting their cult into. Because I do feel like as well, we as human beings have a tendency, and I think this is very important when understanding market psychology or psychology in general. You look at cryptocurrencies, you look at stocks, you look at, something of, any sort of affiliation. We as humans like to affiliate ourselves to something or pick one or another. Like it's literally from politics to literally everyday life. It's like, it's left or right. It's Pepsi or Coca-Cola, it's Bitcoin or Ethereum. Like you can play both sides for sure, but a lot of the times you always see people go into these cults of like, I have to be Xbox over PlayStation, like it's one of these things where sure, you can have an Xbox or you can have a PlayStation, or you can be a smart human being and master race like PC. No, I'm just kidding. But it's one of these things where it's like each person has their own affiliation to something. And for that reason, it's like a constant like debate in between that. And so it's very interesting to see what everyone has their affiliation, and a lot of it comes from brands. And so for that reason, it's like you see that extremely prevalent with a lot of these. It's like, no, I'm BGS, no, I'm PSA, no, I'm CGC. And SGC hasn't really kind of broken into that field of like influence in the same way these other three have.
Why do you think brands pay millions of dollars to have celebrities, back their products? I mean, I'm not even like a like hardcore phone brand guy, but a lot of times I get attacked for still having Samsung Galaxy over an iPhone because I'm an Android. It's like people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you still have an Android. I'm just like, I've always used it and liked it. I never made the switch. I'm not against Apple, and it is funny how like entrenched people get in their views of their products though. I wanted to touch on, so Clown Effect had a comment I wanted to get to. So
Yeah.
he was asking, so Pokemon exclusive ETBs, Pokemon Center ETBs. He's asking if, dude, I think they're going to be less rare in the future than regular ones because of the fact that they're being marketed as a collectible or limited item. So they're not going to get open. They're going to get saved and collected, while the other ones are going to get open more. And I think this is a super good question because it's kind of like the whole Beanie Baby thing, right? Why are they not worth anything? It's because they were sold as a collectible. They were marketed as, hey, store these away. They're going to be worth X amount of dollars in X amount of years. And that is a very, I don't know where I stand on that subject. I mean, I still to this day have not started getting Pokemon Center ETBs, and people always call me crazy and I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm missing out, and I could miss out. But as I said before, I'm so much more okay with missing out than taking losses. And so I'll miss out 10 times if it means I'm not going to take any losses. I'd rather be really sure of what I'm moving into, and they're just still too new for me, and I'm just not 100% sold on it yet. I know almost everyone else is. I'm sure Eli's going to bash me here in a second, and I can't wait for it. But like I said, I'm in that mindset. I don't know yet. Like because they're being marketed as the scarce limited item, I have that feeling that a lot of them are not being opened. They're being collected, and they're being saved, and they're kept in mint condition, and they're all being shipped from Pokemon. So it's just, I don't know. There's definitely a lot less available. It all goes back to how many sealed product cases are all the regular people, the stores are going to sit on of the regular ones, and how many are actually getting distributed to Walmart's, Targets, Amazon, being sold, being opened by Card Shop, everything. It really comes down to what's going to be left in the end. I don't have a strong opinion either way. I'm unsure either way, but it's definitely a topic that I think is worth discussing, and it's definitely unsure. What would you say, Eli?
So I would say of everything you said, the only thing I disagreed with was that there's a potential for loss there because, I mean, obviously only history will tell, but if you look at just market prices for a lot of these items as it stands right now, hypothetically, if Pokemon were to do what Pokemon does best and print to demand, I think worst case scenario, you're going to see these products sell at MSRP, if not slightly below. And so the long-term growth of them, you'll make a return. So I wouldn't say there's going to be losses necessarily.
Yeah, not to cut you off. So, sorry about that. I didn't mean
Go
to
for
say.
it. Go for it.
No, I didn't mean to say that there. You're probably gonna see losses on those because you're buying at retail from Pokemon. You can't get them under retail from a distributor. I was just saying in general when I'm moving to items, I like to kind of err on caution. I like to kind of pick and choose to where I can be in to where I don't feel like I'm gonna have a huge risk of downside pressure. And so I don't feel that way with the Pokemon Center ETBs. I'm just kind of wary of how well they're going to perform in the future. That's all. But no, don't anyone take what I said as, you have a possibility of taking, big losses on these. I don't think that.
No, for sure. And I kind of figured that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
Which is why I was like, all right, yeah, cut me off. Cause I had a feeling you probably wanted to rephrase what you're going to say. But, with that out of the way though, I would say I agree with most of what you say actually. So I'm not going to surprisingly bash you on it. And the reason why is because my sentiment has always been in investing is go away with what the herd is doing. And so when you see like initially one of the things that I talked about with these Pokemon Center ETBs, one of the reasons why I said there was such a huge value is because the initial rollout of them, the demand for them was super high, the supply was super low, and no one was talking about the value that you were getting from it in PokeTubers. And so for me, that's one of the reasons why I was such a huge fan of these Pokemon Center ETBs, which I still am a fan of them, but that's not to say that they aren't extremely speculative. I mean, we're talking about the fact that the first one that came out was literally, back in June for the, Chilling Rain ones. And so they haven't even been out for a year. So we truly don't know the numbers on how many are being printed, how scarce they are. You can make an assumption based on what we have that the Evolving Skies ones, the Chilling Rain ones were very low printed because they're one of the first couple of ones, but we don't even know if there's a potential that they could be reprinted again because these sets are still in rotation for competitive formats. So there's an argument that they still could be, reprinted within another year or two, only time will tell. So I feel like they're very speculative. And the more and more people talk about them, the more and more queasy I get about them because I'm like, all right, well, I think that people are talking about it to the point of where it's like this herd of mentality of like everyone has to be doing it. And once you get to that point, that's where I become fearful of like, all right, well, if everyone's doing it, then it's not that unique and the value is not there. I like to look at the items that you're seeing market movement on it, but no one's talking about it, because once people start to talk about it, specifically in the influencer sphere, then that's where you start to see things rapidly change. So I wouldn't say my stance has necessarily changed on elite trainer boxes for Pokemon Center. I do think that from what we know right now off the data that we have, that I can see them being a really good long-term investment, and the scarcity on them from what we know from some of the older sets is extremely low. But it'll be interesting to see with sets like Brilliant Star, for example, which is a really high demand set, but a very low population set in regards to the ETBs, because there's only one wave of those. The prices on those haven't gone up. You're still seeing Pokemon Center ETBs for the overall, Brilliant Star Elite Trainer box is still up on the site for a while now, versus the other ones had sold out pretty rapidly. I think it's more or less just demand going down for now, is what my guess is, because the supply for, like I said, the standard ETBs is really low to what we know from allocations. So that's just what I would say. So I'm not really like willing to write it off right now and say, oh yeah, it's extremely high print. It's not as scarce as we think. So of course, like I said, time will tell with that. I think demand has just started to go down in the Pokemon hobby because people are starting to go back to work. They don't have stimulus money. But I'm still definitely a fan of them, but I definitely don't think you're missing out by any means if you don't decide to go like a different route and invest in, let's say, standard ETBs like Shining Fates, Vivid Voltage or Darkness Ablaze, especially when you know they're about to go out of rotation and you already know that they were underprinted based off of the pandemic. And the prices went up in those really rapidly because of it. And now they're getting a reasonable print finally after about a year and a half before they go out of rotation. So that's just how I would say about it.
Yeah. I have a question for you. So with, I think I'd put this, with the reprints that we've been seeing, okay, we've been seeing it focused on ETBs, right? I mean, I know we had that last little wave of Brilliant Stars, but Vivid Voltage, Shining Fates is only ETBs, but Vivid Voltage and Darkness Blaze were just ETBs, no more booster boxes. And so do you think with that kind of shift, because before it was, you don't remember back in XY Sun and Moon, ETBs were seen as safe because they never got reprinted really. And so now we're seeing that. Do you think it's going to be a shift of the booster boxes holding more value? People talking about buying, Brilliant Stars right now, it's like, it still has so much longer in rotation and kind of that reprint zone, I guess we could call it. And, Darkness Blaze, Vivid Voltage, these are the same price, if not lower right now than Brilliant Stars are. They have probably, they could have seen their last reprint, which was an ETB reprint. The booster box reprints were 2021, I think. And so, I know there may not be as like kind of hard hitting sets as popular, they were popular in time, but now we have all these shiny new stuff. So how do you see the kind of older booster box market performing, kind of the new booster box market performing, if the ETBs are the center of the reprints?
Well, I would definitely say undeniably the older ones are going to perform better because there was such a low print of them. However, I definitely think from a return perspective, elite trainer boxes are still going to outperform booster boxes. And the reason why I think that is because people have this misrepresentation that ETBs are still heavily printed compared to booster boxes, but they're not. Because typically what happens with ETBs, you typically see one wave or two waves of these ETBs being thrown out, sometimes three, depending upon the set and if it's competitively viable. And then that's kind of it. Recently, you've been seeing a lot of one-of waves, which is very interesting to see. And the only ones that basically had these massive reprints were the ones that were, Darkness Ablaze, Vivid Voltage, which didn't really have a large amount that was printed compared to the supply. I remember talking to my distributors about it, and the amount that I was allocated for booster boxes and I was able to order on Backstock was like unlimited. I could order as many booster boxes as I wanted. But for elite trainer boxes, they were like, yeah, we don't have a lot of those. Those are going quick. Same thing with Darkness Ablaze. The only outlier to that I would say is Shining Fates, but that's because Shining Fates doesn't have booster boxes, so you can't really compare it. And elite trainer boxes are prevalent as kind of the biggest thing they like to reprint. But when we're talking about sets such as like Darkness Ablaze and Vivid Voltage, the Pokemon Company has a tendency to reprint items that are going to bring down the cost of general competitively playable cards. And the best way of doing that is by reprinting booster boxes. Because when you reprint a booster box, it has 36 packs. You open 36 packs, you have higher odds of adding more competitive cards into the set, into the supply, especially when you have guaranteed hits for certain rainbow rare cards, full art cards, and now alternate arts, not including those sets, of course, because they didn't have them at the time. Versus with the elite trainer boxes, they only come with 8 packs. There's no guaranteed set of hits. They're a lot harder to print because you have to throw in the dice, you have to throw in the sleeves to protect the packs. Like, there's so much more logistics that goes into it compared to just reprinting booster boxes, and the value that you're going to get from reprinting booster boxes and bringing down card prices. I think it's more of like that's just the way in which I approach it. Now, of course, Pokemon Company does like to print to demand, so I wouldn't doubt that you could see elite trainer boxes, have more reprints later down the line, like kind of what we saw with Darkness Ablaze, Vivid Voltage. Who knows? It's possible they did it just because those sets were very much underprinted because of supply chain issues. And there's an argument to be made. I mean, you saw the same thing happen with Sword and Shield, the only one, or base. We only haven't seen that with Rebel Clash, which is very surprising, especially considering it's arguably one of the most competitively viable ones. But I think the reason for that potentially is because a lot of the cards that were in the set, they just reprinted into other sets. Like you had Boss's Orders, for example. I mean, Boss's Orders have been reprinted multiple times in like Shining Fates and other sets. You got Marnie reprinted in other sets. If you look at like Sword and Shield, Crobat V, like there's so many different examples of how they're going a different route in regards to looking at it from a competitive play perspective. So they don't have to do that as much. But yeah, I would definitely say that as far as it stands right now, ETBs are just not nearly as printed as booster boxes, because whenever we hear reprint news is always a reprint on booster boxes. It's very rarely we see ETB reprints happen, especially if you look at the history of the past 2 to 3 years, unless it's one of those specialty sets like Shining Fates and Hidden Fates. But for the most part, we've seen way more for the booster boxes.
Well, and here's the other thing that I think is a terrible argument we've heard lately is the product's not moving off the shelves. So I live in Missouri, okay? Like we have a relatively low cost of living. It's not the lowest in the nation, but it's low. And I was in Target this weekend. They have boxes now. They have Vivid Voltage and Darkness Blaze on the shelves for $49.99. And
Shining 49, not 39?
No, and Shining Fates is $54.99. And so when I saw that, that's when I decided to buy some cases of Darkness Blaze, Vivid Voltage, and Shining Fates. I already had a couple, but I bought more because if that is the retail price and that's the reason that products aren't moving off shelves, that makes a lot more sense because, yeah, of course, products not going to move at those prices when people can buy it $10 cheaper or more online right now. And so I think that's a bad kind of look for the hobby of saying that, there's product being left on shelves. It's not as popular anymore. It's not. Oh, we lost Eli.
Hold on 1 second. Sorry. I'm getting a call from my distributor. He keeps spamming my phone.
Maybe we should just put it on live. I think we'd all like to hear that.
Can I mute my audio for a second and call him back?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I do apologize. He's just spammed me 1,000 times. I feel like I have to answer this.
I think Evolving Skies just got reprinted.
Yeah, right.
No, but yeah, so guys, like I think that's what's going on right now is a lot of the products are sitting on the shelves because they're raising retail prices. They're kind of testing out what will sell. And online right now, things are just a lot cheaper than what retail is. And so, I don't know what's going to, if they're going to change that, they'll start having sales or what happened. But I think that's one of the problems. Is there any questions in the chat while Eli's away? Who thinks he's getting a call about Evolving Skies right now, and we're going to finally see a reprint? Is that what it's going to be? All right. I did see Ava's binder just got in the chat. I'm sure everyone's excited about that. Ava, your channel has been on an amazing trajectory. Congratulations on all the growth, for real. The content's been fantastic, and really happy to see you doing so well. Does anyone have anything that you want covered to talk about? I know Derek has been making a fortune with all his money. He invested into Pokemon. He was talking. I saw the chat talking about 10K worth earlier this year. I'm sure it's doing really well with how things have been going. Hey Spencer, nice to hear you from Kansas. Okay, so you pretty much know what I'm talking about. We have the low cost of living down here. It's not too bad. It's not the funnest area to live, I'm sure, in the country, but we make it work. All right. They're gonna have, let's see, SS Joe Ace. They're gonna have Black Friday sales for the ETBs if they're still on the shelves by that time. If they're still on the shelves by that time, then I'm gonna have to jump on the bandwagon and say, maybe we do have some problems. maybe things aren't selling. I don't know. James saying this just in, Evolving Skies reprinting. Wouldn't that be nice to get that word out? You know, kind of heard it here first. Nostalgianomics live stream. That'd be nice. Yeah, guys. So I think just the pricing of everything is kind of in just a transition right here. I know even like distributors are starting to raise prices on some. I mean, Eli is not here to talk on this, but he might have even seen some price rises on some. I mean, not a ton, but even, you know, bringing ETBs or booster boxes up to $3, $4 can mean a lot for a business trying to make, you know, the margins they need to make after shipping and fees and all that. So, you know, I think the price is rising. Here, Will's in the chat from the Lab TCG. Will, have you seen any of your prices from your distributors rising on any product recently? Is Astral Radiance going to be the only which one set? How will that affect its value? Guys, I don't want to talk about Astral Radiance because I know people in the chat, you know, there are people that like Astral Radiance, and I made a video about it. I'm just not the biggest fan. I don't see anything in it that's going to be particularly kind of have to have right now that's going to make people kind of jump on it. And so I don't think it's going to perform very well in the near term. Don't hate me for that. I wouldn't be surprised if we do end up seeing sub $100 a box. Maybe not right away. Maybe if it has, you know, another wave. I think the saving grace for Astral Radiance is Pokemon was smart. I think they knew it was going to be a lower performing set, and that's why they did cut the print runs, and they only had one right now. So I think that could be a saving grace. I think that could protect the value of it, and so we might not see lower prices. But yeah, I mean, this is my opinion. You know, obviously, I don't have inside tracks from distributors. This is just my opinion. So now that Eli's back, he probably has a different opinion than me on Astral Radiance. Eli, what do you think?
Oh my God, I just got huge news. Holy crap. Okay.
Tell it.
So Brilliant Stars, from my distributor who usually never allocates me anything, they just allocated me 10 cases of Brilliant Star for booster boxes, which I usually get about 1 case at most. So we're going to have a massive Brilliant Star reprint that's coming out pretty soon. So that was crazy. He kept spamming me because he's like, bro, I got 10 cases of Brilliant. We have a ton of Brilliant Star that's coming out. So we're trying to get rid of it because we have too much of it. So you heard it here first on the live stream. Brilliant Star prices are about to start dumping. So I'll probably have my Brilliant Star. He said he's shipping them out tomorrow to me. So I think what possibly happened is you saw reprints for some of the other ones come in late. And so now these distributors, you're going to see prices absolutely begin to collapse. So, wow, that is huge. Oh my God, 10K. I'm pretty stoked because I never get Brilliant Star product or any good product from them. So
that's like second best news next to Evolving Skies.
Oh, dude, that's huge. Oh, dude, I am so stoked. Holy crap. I can't believe that's happening. I was like, yo, he's called me like 3 times now. I need to respond to this. It's got to be something big. And so he knows the demand for Brilliant Star. So, dude, I'm pretty stoked about that.
Hey, let's talk about that right now because
why not?
There's going to be, okay. I'm excited, but I also know some people in the chat or some people watching this, they're going to hear that and they're going to be upset. So anyone, if you're holding Brilliant Stars, if you're holding it in the midst of a reprint, it goes back to kind of understanding what you're in. Do you still believe in the product? Do you still believe in the long-term growth? Do you think it's one of the best sets in Sword and Shield? Okay, because a lot of good sets in history have went through reprints. Okay, I mean, from the time I've been in, I mean, I've seen Roaring Skies, and I've seen Ancient Origins literally go from, or not Ancient Origins, Primal Clash literally go from mid hundreds to high hundreds, dropping all the way under $70 a box. And now they're both in the, I think, $300-400 range now. We've seen, I mean, I've seen it with Evolutions a million times, seen it with Shining Legends ETBs. We've seen it with sets all throughout Pokemon history. So if you are kind of like getting that bad feeling in your gut, and you're really freaking out right now, you do see some drops in pricing, you know, I would always say don't panic. Okay. This is what happens in the first 2 years, like we talked about a Pokemon product. Okay. Things are going to have their ebbs and flows. If anything, it's an opportunity to get more product, buy more of a position if you still believe in it. But I wouldn't just go out and freak out right away. You know, just stay calm. Okay. The reprints always happen. Things do usually recover. Eli, you want to speak on that a little
bro,
bit?
I'm pretty jacked right now. Like, I'm not gonna lie, bro. I'm pretty hyped because after I saw prices like not do anything, I was like, gosh dang it, man. Like, why aren't prices doing anything? Like, have my other distributors not gotten a ton? I realized, and now that I got that many, I'm like, holy crap, dude. I'm like, I'm freaking jacked right now. This is gonna be sick. So yeah, no, I mean, obviously,
Now you can buy the pony you always wanted.
yeah, right, dude. That's gonna be, oh my god, dude. Sorry, I'm like, it just hit me. The news just hit me, and to be allocated that many on a late wave, that never happens for myself, like never. So this is huge for such a high demand set. So I'm stoked. But of course, as always, as I talk about on the channel, the biggest thing with that is always make sure you don't FOMO in. Obviously, if you want to support my channel and you want to pay, I'll probably have them up for 120, 125. Then I really appreciate it. But if you, of course, outside of supporting the channel, want to just, you know, wait for prices to drop, based off of the news that I just heard, we're probably going to see booster boxes hit 100 to sub $100. Because for me to get that from that distributor, because I have two distributors, I have one that gives me a lot of product, one that gives me like a case at best. So if you're telling me that case at best gave me 10 cases, that is insane to me. So you're expecting
some strong words right there, Eli.
I could be wrong.
Sub $100 a box.
I'm just saying, like, and not to mention too, with this distributor, the one that barely ever like gives me product, they're very like firm on their prices and they never raise them. So like they're $86. If it's a new wave, it's $86 versus with my other distributors, when they give me more product, I was being charged $100. So the ones that I'm getting, I'm being charged $86. So if you're assuming that they got that much and that other people that also are with them also are going to get that much at those prices, you're probably going to see people competing and the price is going to lower and lower. And you could see the crash really start to drop quickly. And he told me that they're going to ship it out tomorrow night. So you should probably start to see the product, you know, be put up from other people sometimes next week. So it's very interesting because I definitely felt like there was a delay, and I talked about this with you, how it was very surprising that Brilliant Star prices hadn't been dropping as much. So sounds like there was a delay with other distributors, and this is a perfect reason of like, okay, well, guess what? I guess it happened finally. So I'm pretty stoked. Yeah. I'm jacked about it, bro. I am really jacked about it.
You talked about it earlier. I felt like I missed out because I don't have a single Brilliant Stars box. I was waiting it out. And then when this last kind of wave came and no one really got any, and you were talking about, Mason was talking about it, I saw the prices never go below really like 128-ish on eBay, and now they're back up to 140. I was just like, I guess I'm just gonna miss out. Like I talked about, yeah, I'm okay with missing out. I'm just not okay with taking losses. And so I was okay with saying, okay, I missed this one, like and not in any Bob Me Skies anymore. But now this is like, okay, great, I get to jump in. I just wanted to try to bring it down a little because I know there are people out there who are holding them, and I don't want them to feel upset because, I mean, it's great for people that want to open the set that aren't in, but for anyone out there, just don't freak out if you are in it. These prices will recover.
Oh yeah, dude, I'm gonna have a lot of product I'm gonna add to my site either tonight or tomorrow morning because I got all my allocations for Pokemon Go too. So I got all those allocations. I just got a ton of allocations for that. And to be quite honest with you, as I talked about before, you tend to see a lot of like allocation prices or like reprint prices product drop right before a new set release. So I wouldn't be surprised if we did hear news about some other reprints, whether it be Evolving Skies or other sets relatively soon here, either before Astral Radiance. Because that's like, I'm still mind blown about how many I just got allocated. That is a lot of product that to get from them. That means I've all in all had about a quarter, like I've had about 250 all in all, Brilliant Star booster boxes I've gotten from both distributors, and usually it's around 100. So to have like double my allocation plus 50, that is insane that I'm getting that. So pretty hyped about that. And I feel like
That's
people
awesome.
should be hyped too, because prices are going to drop with that. And Brilliant Star, such a high demand set. I mean, you're talking about, and what's interesting too, one thing I will say as well, so Astral Radiance, I'll also be receiving Astral. So, but yeah, I think that's interesting too, because it's ETBs, or ETBs are not part of that as well. It's only booster boxes. So going back to the previous kind of argument, once again, those ETBs are not getting reprinted. It's the booster boxes that are getting heavily reprinted. So that'll be interesting to see. But
Yeah, that's good to see. It's good to see that they aren't,
so, and
switching.
they told me on the phone too what my Astral Radiance allocations were. And it was, yeah, so for your Astral, you get 1 case of Astral. So they're still consistent with the other stuff, which is so ironic to see, because they're like, yeah, by the way, your Astral, you get 1 case and then 1 case of Elite Trainer boxes. So I'm like, yeah, I don't really
How's
care about it.
Pokemon Go looking?
Pokemon Go allocations. We can go over it right now. I'll let you guys know. Hold on, let me pull up my email. It's not
Insider trading, guys. Everyone
yeah,
in the
yeah,
chat, we
right?
got some insider knowledge. Write this down.
So I just got this. This is my allocation for my other distributor. This is Magazine Exchange. So I got allocated for Pokemon Go collection, Alolan Executor V. I got allocated 42 of them. I got allocated 7 of the 7 cases of the Pokemon Go Elite Trainer boxes. Got allocated 36 of the gift tins, 4 cases of the mini tins, 30 of the pin collection, 42 of the Pokeballs, 24 of the Radiant EVs, 30 of the Team Instinct, Mystic, and Valor, and then 6 of the battle decks, and then 36 of the battle deck bundles. So what that basically shows me, for those people that are wondering about the numbers that I just threw out, the item that's going to be the least printed and probably the most sought after, we're probably talking about the Radiant EV with the playmat on it. Non-shockingly enough, the Pokemon Go Elite Trainer boxes, I got 70 of those. I want to say that's right about at line of how I got it for Shining Fates. I can try and go back and pull up what I got for Shining Fates, but that's about accurate, or celebrations. I might have gotten more. I'll have to look up allocations on that.
So right now it's no higher than regular specialty release set.
No, it's nothing special right now, which we'll see, of course, later down the line, because one of the things I have learned about my distributors when it comes to specialty sets, specifically the one that I just read off right now, they absolutely love to give you your initial allocations and then jack up the prices later down the lines on their weekly specials. And they, like, for the longest time for celebrations, had literally like weekly special product just sitting there at like at MSRP prices is basically what they were selling it to us for. So, and that was because in their mind, they're like, yeah, well, we're selling it to you at MSRP.
Right.
So that's a good deal because of market price, which, I mean, you can look at it however you want to look at it. But yeah, no. So here's my numbers. I just pulled up my celebrations numbers. So I got allocated 80 of the Pokemon Celebrations Elite Trainer boxes. So I got a little bit less. And then from the general collection boxes and other things, I actually got almost double the amount of collection items, I would say, for most of my Pokemon Go stuff compared to regular stuff. Actually, wait, no, that's not true. I got no, did I get 7 mini tins or cases? Maybe not. It looks like it's around the same is what I'm going to say. I'm going to say it's around the same. And then certain items selectively, I got more for Pokemon Go. If you're looking at the counterparts, comparing it to Celebration. So I'm going to say you're probably looking at a print similar to around Celebrations, if I were to guess, based on what my allocations are telling me. So
yeah, so I mean, isn't it funny? We were just talking about market sentiment, how it changes. Isn't it funny how much the Pokemon Go sentiment has changed from when everyone found out that it was going to happen, and it's got closer and closer. We started to see more items, and now I think it's pretty much changed where it's now super positive. When back then everyone kind of almost hated it and didn't think it was going to do well. It's really funny to just kind of step back and watch it change before your eyes, isn't it?
Oh, big time. I mean, that's the thing, is you can make your speculations. And that's why my thing I always talk about is I hold my reserve, because if you looked at Astral Radiance, like pretty in advance, a lot of people were already calling it a dud set before they knew the real set. And I was like, based on what we know, I'm going to say it doesn't look good, but I also want to hold my reserve before I fully start dumping on it, because I want to see what the rest of the cards were. Once I saw the rest of the cards, then I gave you my full sentiment. same exact argument I made with Pokemon Go. I said, I just hope they don't make it like a Detective Pikachu type stuff. But if they do go a different direction, it could be a good set. Only time will tell. And now that we know, we're going to have the first ever shiny Venusaur, which I've been begging them for, or Radiant, if you want to look at it from that design. And then the second ever shiny Blastoise. We haven't seen that since Plasma Storm. Like, that got me super hyped because I think that's going to bring a lot of people into this set for sure. And the art designs, I don't know if they're going to like keep the stamps on the cards. I don't know how that's going to look and how that's going to affect people's like perception of it, but I think this is going to be an extremely high demand set based off the shinies alone.
I mean, I'm gonna eat my words eventually, but yeah, I kind of had hot takes on both. I said I was one of the people in the kind of down on the Astro Radiance, and I was one of the people that was super hyped on Go. I just couldn't understand why everyone was down on Pokemon Go when it was. I mean, that was kind of around the time, a little after the time I got in the hobby. That was the thing that sparked Pokemon to what we know today. I mean, that was the big catalyst of kind of before Logan Paul, which brought tons of people back in the hobby. And for anyone to think that that's not going to, resonate with people like, oh, well, those people play the game, they're not going to collect the cards. Like, how many people do you know that just play the game or just watch the show and doesn't get to the cards? Like, it almost always funnels to the cards for most people. There's some out there, but a lot of people funnel to the cards. And to have a Pokemon Go set, I just think it's a home run. I mean, there's going to be the casual collectors, there's going to be the serious collectors, there's going to be the people who just play the games, now they hear the Go. There's going to be people that maybe were real deep in Pokemon Go that don't really play anymore, but they hear about the set, so they're going to come back into Pokemon. It's going to research. I think it's going to be a really good time for the hobby. I'm just going to come out and say it.
No, I 100% agree. I think we're in a really good direction. One thing I will say though, and I really, once again, holding off reserves because only time will tell. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Phantasma, I think is what it's called. Whatever the English version of that set is going to be for Dark Phantasma, because the secret rares they've revealed so far, there have been no alternate arts, which, to be fair, for Astro Radiance, the first reveal that we got for I can't remember what the name of the set was, but the first set we revealed only had character rares. It didn't have alternate arts. It was the second set that revealed it. So I'm definitely hoping that they keep the trend going with Dark Phantasma with alternate arts. And it'll be interesting to see as well what they do with Pokemon Go and if that's going to have any alternate arts or anything along the line. So, because we probably should be hearing news pretty soon here of what's going to be in the set with Japan, especially after we know the Radiant cards are going to be in them. I'm curious to see what they're going to look like. But yeah, I would say Pokemon as a whole is in a really good spot in the hobby. They've been really, I mean, literally since the middle of the Sun and Moon era, they've kind of been smashing out of the park right now. Like, well, they're on a really good pace with some of the sets. I mean, you're talking about like even some of the low end sets, like Lost Thunder, for example. Like, you're talking about, you had Celestial Storm, you had Unbroken Bonds, Unified Minds, you had Hidden Fates, Cosmic Eclipse, Team Up. Like, once you started hitting like the good end of those regular rainbow / full art cards, and then starting to really get into the team ups, and now, you had a little bit of a rocky start with Sword and Shield, but, starting from, Vivid Voltage to Shining Fates, and then all these alternate art card sets, like, I think we're in a really good direction, and you're starting to see the artwork that they're able to do with it. I mean, especially with the MC Etcher card designs, like with Astral, whether you're not a fan of Astral or not, I mean, you can't deny some of the artwork is gorgeous and what they're able to do with alternate art. So I like the sketch art kind of designs, especially with like Machamp or like the Beedrills. So I think they're in a really good spot right now for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. It's awesome to see some good stuff happening. Although all modern product is not investable. Remember that.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, to be fair, you can always create a return on modern products, but you're going to see better rate of returns on other ones than.
I was joking.
Oh, yeah. I was like, well,
that's kind of the, the thought around the community these days is do not invest in modern products.
Oh yeah, dude. And modern's destroying right now. So I don't get that, man. Like,
yeah, that's why I kind of made the argument before, is that by the time any of these vintage slabs that are being pushed even start to grow again, it's like, well, how many products will I be in and out of in modern over those years and already made exponential gains on? It's kind of, I don't know. I don't know where it all comes from. I don't want to get into all that, but it's just it's funny to listen to.
No, 100%. I agree. So,
Anyone out there have any more questions, comments, concerns? I know Ava was concerned. I saw her comment earlier. She was concerned about you going to prison for all this insider trading.
right. Hold on one second. I have to mute my video one sec. I have an appointment. Yeah, I have an appointment in like 20 minutes. We'll have to wrap it up soon.
Yeah, no problem.
So
everyone throw their last question in for us, and we'll try to get it answered. Eli has to go. He's a busy man. Appreciate everyone for stopping by and staying this whole time. I think we got up to like over 80 people at one point. That's crazy. That's a huge live stream for me. I'm sure Eli's used to those numbers, but I'm not used to that many on here. And I also want to thank everyone for who gave super chats earlier. Thanks so much. I really appreciate the support. Thanks for just stopping by in general. I appreciate you hanging out and being in the comments. I'm trying to read and get back as many comments as possible. So I really appreciate all the engagement.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on, brother.
Yeah, man, it's been real. I appreciate the that was nice to have the breaking news.
Oh yeah, that was pretty huge. One of the people in the comments was like, yo, it feels like it's like Adam Schefter breaking the news for like football stuff. And I was like, yo, that's so relatable. Cause like I'm a huge fan of like the Pat McAfee show. And so it's the funniest thing because it'll be like Adam Schefter's on there and he's like on his face cam, he's talking to them and you can see him clearly like tweeting or texting like while he's looking at the screen. And they're like, are you tweeting something? He's like, yeah, I'm about to drop some breaking news on Twitter. And they're like, what? And he's like, what happened? And then he breaks the news and they're like, oh my God, you heard it here first. And that's the funniest thing. Cause I was like, as people were comparing it to that. And I'm like, that's so true.
Yeah. Well, I want to see a lot of questions coming in. Where do I buy the ticket to the rocket ship to the moon? Got to talk to Papa Elon on that.
You know, well, I'm just saying, man, if we're going to see prices on these billion star booster boxes truly drop to 100, 105 or lower, I'm going to be loading up. And here's the thing, man. One thing I will tell you, because when you're talking about the elite trainer box versus booster box debate, one thing I will say about being diversified with those is when it comes to elite trainer boxes versus booster boxes, if you just took booster boxes versus elite trainer boxes and you said they had the same amount of reprints, I would say that booster boxes would more than likely outperform elite trainer boxes. So if you look at like, you know, let's say what's a good example? I guess we'll go with Evolving Skies, right? If you look at elite trainer box value on Evolving Skies, it's been pretty like steady, like upwards. It's not been the same roller coaster we've seen with, you know, the Evolving Skies booster boxes where it goes from 115 to 190 to 120 and then 100 to back to 190. Like it's very much like up and down versus elite trainer boxes. It's kind of been like slow up, slow up, slow up. So for me, it's one of these things where in regards to short-term, like medium-term trading and like playing the waves, I definitely would say booster boxes for me is definitely my go-to, but long-term, it's going to be elite trainer boxes for those reasons because of the reprints. And then a second thing I want to mention as well, for a lot of people, elite trainer boxes are not super easy to store. And so there's also more value to add as well to booster boxes. So I don't want people to get the wrong impression that I don't have booster boxes myself. Sure, I'm sitting on a lot of elite trainer boxes compared to booster boxes, but I still am a fan of booster boxes and they're a lot easier to store, like I said. And if you're trying to make the most money off of volatility, playing the waves with booster boxes is going to make you way more money than if you were just to sit on ETBs throughout the whole reprint. That's for sure.
So when you say that you're not sitting on booster boxes, you mean for Brilliant Stars? You mean like for the sets that you sit on for long term? You don't.
I'm talking about basically when I say sets. When I say sets that are in heavy demand, and you talk about the fact that there's a rolling wave of prices going up and down, like Evolving Skies, where you're able to buy in at these lows and then resell at these highs, and then reprint happens for it, and you buy at the lows and you sell at the highs, because, you know, inevitably another great example is like Vivid Voltage, right? Vivid Voltage booster boxes at one point went up to 220, 240. Then the prices crashed down to 120 after reprint, went back up to 160. Prices got reprinted again, crashed down to 100. So it's like if you had played those waves on Vivid Voltage on buying all the lows and then just holding until the next reprint, then you would have made an absolute killing off of it. So I'm saying with a situation like Brilliant Stars, for example, with booster boxes, the volatility of these booster boxes to trade them in the short to medium term is going to be a lot better than if you're someone that wants to just sit on product and have that slow, better long-term return growth on like an elite trainer boxes. Because even though you're saying to yourself, the money I could have made in between on booster boxes is greater, the long-term growth you're going to be getting from just a stagnant growth outside of the once reprints start to no longer happen for that set is going to be better on ETBs. So for me, it's more along the lines of short-term, medium-term. I'm trading a lot of booster boxes by playing the waves. And then long-term, it's ETBs or what I'm sitting on once they go out of print, because they typically tend to outperform booster boxes because of how many more times they've been reprinted and suppressed in regards to the price and population.
And so what about like a less like mainstream products? Like someone asked about 3-pack blisters, or like, what about collection boxes? You sit on any of that product?
Only from specialty sets. Like, I have a lot of Shining Fates and Champion's Path and Celebration specialty boxes. Like, I still have the Marnie pads. That's one of my favorite items I'm sitting on right now, because the Marnie premium with the Champion's Path, as well as like the playmat, is really cool. I'm sitting on a lot of the like Dragapults and like the Crowbats. I think those are really cool too. I'm sitting on some of the tins from Shining Fates. I sold most of my elite trainer boxes for Champion's Path because I felt like $100 was a good price for me to like cash out on, because there's a lot of opportunity elsewhere in the market. I wanted to move my money and capital. But yeah, and then same with celebrations. I mean, I'm sitting on a lot of like Lance's Charizard and Dark Sylveons, and talked about a lot about the collector's chests. I mean, even some of the other stuff like the pink collections or like the Dragapults, like I'm still sitting on those for sure. Do I think there's, better money to be made, elsewhere? Potentially, yeah. But for me, I like to be diversified in a lot of these special collection stuff, because the print on those are going to be a lot lower than the trainer boxes. And so even though I am pretty heavily invested on elite trainer boxes for celebrations, especially like the Pokemon Center ones, I definitely still like to be diversified, because if you compared like Shining Legends, for example, chests versus the ETBs, if you look at the overall MSRP value versus the current value, they actually 1-for-1 are around the same price. The only difference is, of course, the ETBs have had way more reprints or prints than the collector's chests. I shouldn't say way more, a couple more, but in the grand scheme of things, it's had more since it's been printed multiple times, whereas the chests have not. Because it's very rare you see specialty collection items not get their second reprint. I mean, obviously you can look to Hidden Fates tins and like their pin collections with the Mew and Mewtwo, but to my knowledge, the Mew and Mewtwo ones were just another wave. And then the outlier of that would be the Hidden Fates tins, because it was easy for them to just throw packs in that, because they had multiple reprints of that. So yeah, it's always good to be diversified, because you never know what's going to hit with reprints and what's not, and then how the returns on those are going to be good based on what they have inside of them.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the stay diversified is the main thing. I mean, there's always a better play out there, but you don't know that for sure. So it's like, some things don't perform as well, some things perform better than you expected. It usually equals out to the same way. Well, one last thing. So Vidu, he asked a question a couple times. Asked, are there any concerns about Pokemon Go mobile game starts to go on in decline? Will that affect the popularity of the card game? I think there's enough, I guess you could call it even nostalgia at this point for Pokemon Go, because it was back in like 16. So I think there's enough following and love behind it that it's going to carry the card game.
Wait, who asked that question again? Sorry, I want to read it.
Vidu GMS. It was posted a couple times. It says question.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, and so I just feel like, I mean, there's enough carrying that, like not just even from people like me who never played Pokemon Go, who literally just involved in the card game, and things like that. So I think there's enough interest from all over the hobby, and then obviously people from Pokemon Go, it's going to carry the set. And I don't think with Pokemon Go popularity declining, even if it is or does, I don't think it's going to have a huge effect. What would you say?
I would also say that, especially because Pokemon Go as a whole, to my knowledge, it hasn't declined as heavy as a lot of people think. Because a lot of people look at like the high spike of people coming in when it first came out and then say there was a steady decline. But I know of a ton of people that still play the game. And I myself live in a small town, and we've got a Pokemon Go thread of hundreds of people in it. And we were talking about event days, you will see people in the like 50 to 100 go down and like all play together on event days. And it's the craziest thing to see that happen. And that still happens to this day. So I think in regards to popularity, it's more or less been like you haven't seen a super explosive growth in the game, but that's not to say that there's still not a decent amount of people that are in it. I just think that it has started to like kind of had a flat line of growth. Like you had its initial like explosive, super hypey phase, and then you saw a decent amount of people leave it because they kind of fell out of it. And now you're starting to see, you know, some people that are slowly coming back into it, but there's still, I would say, a natural amount of growth coming into the game. It's just not the same rate at which when the hype was super high. So because I know literally I'm like one of my only friends that doesn't play Pokemon Go. Like all my friends play Pokemon Go. I'm the only one that doesn't play it. So and I think that's because for me, I'm really grindy when it comes to video games that I play. Like I play there's another game I play a lot, like Pokemon. How am I forgetting the name of it? What's the mobile one that I'm forgetting? Pokemon Unite. Yeah, like I got to 1700 masters and then I got bored after like grinding for like a couple weeks. And then I got to like level 35 for like Pokemon Go the game. And I like had basically gotten all the Pokemon available in my area and I got kind of bored with that. So like for me, I feel like with that game specifically, it's very grindy. So you can see a lot of people getting burnt out of it. And then, but then eventually, like when they add more features, then it'll draw people back in because I've been drawn into the game multiple times back in when they add new cool features. So I wouldn't expect it to really play that huge of an effect. And I think it coming out with Pokemon Go cards, if anything, you could see kind of like a cross mash of, you know, potential fans going back into Pokemon Go or vice versa, coming in and checking out the cards. Because I've got a weird intuition. I could be off base, but I have a feeling there's probably going to be some form of incorporation with the cards into the game outside of the fact that it's just a stamp on it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the code cards potentially.
Yeah, definitely. Well, all right, guys. I think that's going to be the stream. Eli's got to get going. Thanks everyone for showing up and, you know, being in the chat. Thanks for the super chats and really appreciate everyone coming out for the live stream. It means a lot. Eli, you got anything to say? All right. Oh, I am going to, I'll have Eli's links posted for his channel, his store. If you want to pick up those Brilliant Stars boxes, I'll have that link posted. And so you can go check that out afterwards. Eli, you want to add anything?
I appreciate you as always, Nostalgianomics, for letting me on. I'm super stoked that we were able to make this happen. And then if you want to check me out as well on my site, it's PokemartUSA.com, and then we'll be doing a booster box break as well if anyone's interested for Ancient Origins this upcoming Sunday. So I always make it a promise to buy the booster box and sell the pack prices for the same of what it cost me to buy the booster box. So I try to make it as cheap as possible. So if you're interested in that, those packs will be up on the site, and then we'll be doing that break at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Sunday. But yeah, that's about all as far as it goes.